In the Walker family, responsibility was measured in very specific ways. College degree from a prestigious university? Responsible. Corporate job with benefits and a 401k? Responsible. Married by 30 with a house in the suburbs? Responsible. My brother Derek checked every box. Harvard Business School. Director of Finance at a Fortune 500 company. Married to Amanda, a pediatrician. Living in a 5-bedroom house in Scottsdale with 2 perfect children. I was Riley Walker and I checked none of those boxes. I dropped out of Arizona State after 2 years to pursue photography. I lived in a small apartment in Tempe. I drove a beat-up Jeep Wrangler. I was 32 and unmarried with no plans to change that status. Riley's still finding herself. Mom would tell people at dinner parties, her smile tight with embarrassment. Not everyone follows a traditional path, Dad would add, which sounded supportive until you heard the disappointment underneath. Derek was less diplomatic. Riley's a flake, he'd say directly. Great at taking pictures, terrible at being an adult. The photography thing, my little hobby as Mom called it, generated $220,000 annually. But my family had stopped asking about my income after I left college in 2014. In their minds I'd failed. Failed to get a degree. Failed to get a real job. Failed to become the responsible daughter they'd wanted. But there was one person who saw me differently. My grandmother, Elizabeth Walker. Grandma Elizabeth was a Phoenix real estate legend, though she never advertised it. She'd started buying properties in the 1970s when Phoenix was still small and land was cheap. A duplex here. A small apartment building there. A commercial property when the opportunity arose. By 2018 she owned 10 properties across Arizona. 1. 6-unit apartment building Phoenix. 2. 4-unit apartment building Tempe. 3. Strip mall, 8 storefronts. Scottsdale. 4. Duplex Mesa. 5. 3-bedroom house Tucson. 6. Small office building Phoenix. 7. Warehouse Phoenix. 8. 4-unit apartment building Flagstaff. 9. Duplex Chandler. 10. Retail space, 3 storefronts, Sedona. Total value in 2018, $4.2 million. Annual rental income, $324,000. All paid off. All managed quietly while she lived in a modest ranch house and drove a 15-year-old Buick. The secret to wealth is that nobody needs to know you have it, Grandma told me when I was 23. Let them underestimate you. It's the most powerful position there is. She'd started teaching me about real estate when I was 19, right after I left college. Derek understands spreadsheets, she said. But he doesn't understand property. He thinks real estate is about numbers. It's about people, tenants, neighborhoods, communities. Every Wednesday for 9 years I had lunch with Grandma Elizabeth. We'd meet at her house and she'd teach me property management, tenant relations, maintenance scheduling, market analysis, cash flow optimization. Why me? I asked her once. Derek has the business degree. Derek has credentials, Grandma corrected. You have instinct. Derek sees properties as investments. You see them as homes. That's the difference between a landlord and a steward. By 2018, I understood Grandma's portfolio better than anyone in the family. I knew property number 1 in Phoenix was her first purchase in 1974. I knew property number 3 in Scottsdale had the highest cash flow but required the most management attention. I knew property number 8 in Flagstaff was appreciating fastest due to the university expansion. I knew the entire portfolio generated $27,000 monthly in net income. And I knew Derek had been trying to get property management access for 3 years. Starting in 2015, Derek launched what I called his responsibility campaign. Grandma, at your age you shouldn't be managing 10 properties, he'd say at family dinners. Let me take over. I have the financial expertise. I'm managing fine, Grandma would reply. But think about your legacy, Derek would press. These properties need sophisticated oversight. Professional management. Strategic planning. What Derek really meant. He wanted control before inheritance. He'd quiz Grandma about her properties at every opportunity. What's the cap rate on the Scottsdale strip mall? What's your maintenance reserve? Have you considered depreciation schedules? Grandma would answer vaguely and change the subject. Meanwhile, Derek started telling everyone he was preparing to take over Grandma's real estate portfolio. At Thanksgiving 2016, once I inherit the properties, I'm implementing a complete management overhaul. At Christmas 2017, Grandma's portfolio is worth $4 million now. When it transfers to me, I'll leverage the equity to expand. Always when it transfers to me. Never if. Because in Derek's mind and everyone's mind, the responsible child would inherit the valuable assets. The irresponsible child would get whatever scraps remained. What no one knew was that Grandma Elizabeth had made her decision 3 years earlier. In February 2018, Grandma called me to her attorney's office. Margaret Foster was a real estate attorney who'd handled Grandma's property transactions since the 1980s. Her office was in downtown Phoenix, modest and professional. "Sit down, Riley," Grandma said. I sat. Margaret slid documents across her desk. "Your grandmother is establishing an irrevocable trust for all 10 properties. The trust will name you as sole trustee and beneficiary." I stared at Grandma. "All 10? But Derek." "Derek is exactly like your father," Grandma interrupted. "Obsessed with appearing responsible. More concerned with management credentials than actual care. He'd sell half these properties within 2 years to optimize the portfolio." "But I'm not. Everyone thinks I'm irresponsible." "Everyone thinks you're irresponsible because you chose passion over prestige," Grandma said firmly. "But I've watched you for 9 years. You understand these properties. You know the tenants' names. You care about maintenance quality, not just profit margins." Margaret explained the mechanics. All 10 properties would transfer to the Walker Family Property Trust on February 15, 2018. The trust was irrevocable. Even Grandma couldn't change it once signed. "What about Derek? And my parents?" "They'll receive $20,000 each from my will," Grandma said. "Enough to make the will valid. But the properties won't be mentioned because they'll already be yours." "They're going to be furious." "Yes," Grandma agreed. "Which is exactly why we're doing this while I'm healthy and competent. No one can claim I was confused or coerced." She tapped a folder containing medical evaluations from 2 doctors confirming her mental capacity. "But why hide it?" I asked. Grandma's eyes were sharp. "Because I want to see what Derek does when he thinks he's inheriting everything. He's been angling for property management access for years. Let's see what he really wants that access for." I signed the documents with trembling hands. On February 15, 2018, 10 properties transferred to the Walker Family Property Trust. All 10 deeds were recorded with their respective county recorder's offices. Total value, $4.2 million. Legal. Binding. Irreversible. And Grandma made me promise absolute secrecy. "Let Derek show his true colors," she said. "Then when I'm gone, the truth protects itself." In 2019, Grandma finally gave Derek what he'd been asking for: property management access. "You want to prove you're responsible?" she told him at Sunday dinner. "Help me manage the properties for a year. Show me you understand the work." Derek was thrilled. "I won't let you down, Grandma." He immediately started implementing his sophisticated management strategy. He hired a property management company, Premium Arizona Properties, to handle day-to-day operations. Professional oversight, he called it. He created spreadsheets tracking every expense. Data-driven decision-making. He sent monthly reports to Grandma showing optimized performance. But I noticed something odd. The numbers in Derek's reports didn't match the actual rental income. Property number 1 in Phoenix. 6 units at $1,400 each should generate $8,400 monthly. Derek's reports showed $7,200. Property number 3 in Scottsdale. 8 storefronts generating $4,200 monthly combined. Derek's reports showed $3,400. Property number 6 in Phoenix. Office building with 3 tenants paying $2,800, $2,200 and $1,900. Derek's reports showed total income of $5,200 instead of $6,900. The missing amounts were consistent. Always around 15 to 20% below actual rent collected. I documented everything. Screenshots of Derek's reports. copies of actual lease agreements, calculations showing the discrepancies. Then I contacted the tenants directly. Has your rent amount changed? I asked the tenant in property number 6. No, still $2,800 monthly, they confirmed. Paid on time every month. And who processes your payments? Premium Arizona Properties. They send receipts automatically. I called Premium Arizona Properties, claiming I was considering using their services. Do you handle the Walker properties? I asked. Yes, we've been managing those since 2019, the property manager confirmed. Great portfolio. Very well maintained. And the owner receives the full rental income minus your management fee? Of course. Our fee is 8%, and we transfer the remaining 92% to the account on file. The account on file. Not Grandma's account. An account Derek had set up. I hired a forensic accountant without telling anyone. In January 2023, 5 years after the trust transfer, I hired Thomas Rivera, a forensic accountant specializing in real estate fraud. I need a complete audit, I told him, providing 5 years of bank records, lease agreements, and Derek's management reports. Someone is diverting funds. I need to know how much and where it went. Thomas's report took 2 months. The findings were catastrophic. Period analyzed. March 2019 to December 2022, 46 months. Total rental income collected, $1,247,000. Amount transferred to Elizabeth Walker, $767,000. Missing amount, $480,000. Derek had set up a property management account, claiming it was for maintenance reserves and operational expenses. Rental income went into this account. Derek took his cut, then transferred the remainder to Grandma. The diverted funds, $480,000 over 46 months, were being transferred to accounts Derek controlled. Some went directly to his personal checking. Some went to an LLC he'd created called Walker Property Solutions. The pattern was consistent. Collect rent, skim 15 to 20%, transfer the rest, report lower income on his management reports. Thomas's report included asterisk bank statements showing diverted transfers. Asterisk analysis of Derek's LLC. Asterisk comparison of reported versus actual rental income. Asterisk timeline of every fraudulent transaction. This is systematic embezzlement, Thomas said. He's been stealing from your grandmother for nearly 4 years. Any prosecutor would take this case. I filed the report with Margaret Foster, Grandma's attorney. Then Grandma Elizabeth died 3 months later, in April 2023. At Grandma's funeral, Derek gave a moving eulogy. Grandma Elizabeth taught me the value of hard work and responsible stewardship, he said, voice breaking perfectly. She entrusted me with managing her properties over the last few years. I promised to honor that trust by continuing her legacy with the same care and professionalism she would have wanted. People nodded. Several relatives cried. Mom dabbed her eyes proudly. Dad smiled at his responsible son. Amanda, Derek's wife, posted on Facebook, saying goodbye to an incredible woman who taught us that legacy is about more than assets. It's about responsibility. Derek will carry on her vision with the integrity she instilled in him. Of blue heart. I sat in the back and said nothing. After the service, Derek cornered me in the parking lot. Riley, I know you and Grandma were close, he said, his tone sympathetic. But you need to understand, the properties are going to require sophisticated management. I've been handling them for years. I know the systems, the tenants, the numbers. I'm sure you do, I said neutrally. I just want you to be prepared, Derek continued. The inheritance is probably going to be structured so I handle the properties and you get some cash distribution. That's what makes sense given our different skill sets. Different skill sets, I repeated. You're great at creative stuff, Derek said encouragingly. But property management requires financial expertise. Business acumen. It's nothing personal, just practical. Right, I said. Practical. I'm glad you understand, Derek said, patting my shoulder. We'll make sure you're taken care of. I smiled and walked to my Jeep. The inheritance meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks later. May 2, 2023. 2 p.m. Margaret Foster's conference room. The whole family gathered. Mom, Dad, Derek, Amanda, me, Aunt Patricia and Uncle James. Derek arrived in a suit, carrying a leather portfolio. He'd prepared a full presentation about transitioning Grandma's portfolio to professional management. I arrived in jeans and a t-shirt, carrying nothing. Margaret opened the meeting formally. We're here to address Elizabeth Walker's estate. Her will is straightforward regarding most assets. She read through the preliminaries. Small bequests to various relatives. $20,000 to Derek. $20,000 to Mom and Dad. $20,000 to me. Regarding my real estate holdings, Margaret continued, no disposition is made in this will, as those assets were transferred to an irrevocable trust in February 2018. Derek smiled confidently. Yes, the trust I've been managing. We should discuss the formal transition. You're too irresponsible to inherit anything, Derek announced, turning to face me directly. These 10 Arizona properties need responsible management. Mine. Dad agreed. Derek has proven himself capable. Smirked. Riley can barely manage her own finances. I just smiled. Derek opened his portfolio. I've prepared a comprehensive transition plan. I'll continue managing all 10 properties with Premium Arizona Properties handling day-to-day operations. Riley can receive quarterly distributions if she needs financial assistance. Very generous, Amanda added. Aunt Patricia nodded approvingly. Derek has always been responsible. Derek pulled out spreadsheets showing his management success over the past 4 years. Occupancy rates, expense ratios, net operating income. All based on the fraudulent numbers he'd been reporting. As you can see, Derek said confidently, I've increased operational efficiency by 12% while maintaining high tenant satisfaction. The portfolio is well positioned for. Then the trust administrator stood. Actually, Margaret Foster stood, but she'd brought Diane Chin, the trust administrator from First Arizona Trust Company, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner. Diane stepped forward with a briefcase. Your grandmother's 2018 trust granted Ms. Walker all 10 properties, now valued at $5.8 million. The room went silent. Diane opened her briefcase and removed a thick folder. On February 15, 2018, Elizabeth Walker established the Walker Family Property Trust, she said professionally. All 10 properties transferred to the trust on that date. Riley Walker was named sole trustee and beneficiary. She laid out 10 recorded deeds on the conference table. Maricopa County Recorder, property number 1 transferred to Walker Family Property Trust February 15, 2018. Maricopa County Recorder, property number 2, transferred to Walker Family Property Trust February 15, 2018. 10 deeds. All stamped. All recorded. All showing Riley Walker as trustee/beneficiary. Derek grabbed the first deed with shaking hands. This says 2018. This says Riley owns. Ms. Walker has legally owned all 10 properties for 5 years and 2 months, Diane confirmed. Current appraised value, $5.8 million. The trust dissolved upon Elizabeth Walker's death. Riley now owns the properties outright. That's impossible, Derek whispered. I've been managing them. Grandma gave me access. Mrs. Walker gave you temporary management responsibilities, Margaret interjected. But she never gave you ownership rights. The properties transferred to Riley in 2018. Mom's face had gone pale. Dad's mouth hung open. But I'm the responsible one, Derek said, his voice rising. I have the MBA. I have the financial expertise. I've been managing these properties for 4 years. Then Diane added, we're also investigating $480,000 your brother claims he managed. She pulled out Thomas Rivera's forensic accounting report. During your 4 years of management, rental income totaling $1,247,000 was collected from the 10 properties, Diane said. However, only $767,000 was transferred to Mrs. Walker's account. The remaining $480,000 was diverted to accounts you control. My brother started screaming because, that's a lie. Derek shouted, jumping to his feet. I managed those properties professionally. I created systems. I hired Premium Arizona Properties. You hired them to collect rent that you then embezzled, I said quietly. Diane laid out the forensic report. Page after page of evidence. March 2019. Property number 1 collected $8,400. Derek reported $7,200. Difference. $1,200 diverted. April 2019. Property number 3 collected $4,200. Derek reported $3,400. Difference. $800 diverted. 46 months of systematic theft. This shows that between March 2019 and December 2022, you diverted $480,000 from properties you didn't own, Diane continued. The money was transferred to your personal accounts and to an LLC called Walker Property Solutions. Amanda had gone completely white. Derek, tell them this isn't true. It's not embezzlement. Derek insisted desperately. I was setting aside maintenance reserves. For future repairs. For your personal checking account? I interrupted. I pulled out additional documents. Bank statements showing transfers from Walker Property Solutions directly to Derek's personal accounts and credit cards. August 2020, $18,000 transferred to Derek Walker personal account, same day you bought your Audi. January 2021, $22,000 transferred, 3 days before your Cabo vacation. June 2021, $31,000 transferred, week before you paid off Amanda's student loans. Every major personal expense Derek had made over 4 years, funded by money stolen from Grandma's properties. I was going to pay it back. Derek shouted. When? I asked coldly. After you inherited properties you thought were coming to you? This is insane, Derek said, turning to our parents. Mom, Dad, tell them Riley can't possibly own these properties. She's irresponsible. She's a flake. She dropped out of college. She's also the person Grandma trusted with a $5.8 million portfolio, Margaret said firmly. While you were embezzling, Diane added. Mom found her voice. Riley, did you know about this? About the trust. Since 2018, I confirmed. You knew for 5 years and said nothing? Grandma asked me not to, I said. She wanted to see what Derek would do when he thought he was inheriting everything. Now we know. Dad looked at Derek with something like horror. You stole from your dying grandmother? I didn't steal. Derek insisted. I managed. I created value. You embezzled $480,000, I said flatly, while giving eulogies about responsibility and stewardship. Amanda stood abruptly. I need to leave. Amanda, wait. Derek reached for her. Don't touch me, she said, her voice shaking. You stole from your grandmother. You let everyone think you were this responsible manager while you were stealing. She walked out. Derek turned to me, desperate. Riley, we're family. You can't press charges. Think about Mom and Dad. Think about my kids. I am thinking about them, I said. I'm thinking about what they'll learn from this. What do you want? Derek asked, his voice breaking. The properties are yours. What else do you want? Accountability, I said. I looked at Derek. My brother. The responsible one. The family success story who'd stolen nearly $500,000. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Derek will sign a confession acknowledging the embezzlement. That confession goes to Margaret. If Derek ever challenges the trust transfer, claims I manipulated Grandma, or spreads lies about how he was cheated, that confession goes to the Maricopa County District Attorney. Riley, please, Derek started. Second, Derek will repay the $480,000. Not to me, to a foundation I'm establishing in Grandma's name. The Elizabeth Walker Housing Fund to help families afford secure housing. Full repayment over 10 years. Monthly payments of $4,000. 10 years. Derek's voice cracked. That's $48,000 annually. That's 1/10 of what you stole, I said. You're lucky I'm not pressing criminal charges right now. This will bankrupt us, Derek whispered. Then you should have thought of that before embezzling from your dying grandmother, I replied. I turned to Mom and Dad. You both need to understand something. Grandma didn't choose me because I was irresponsible. She chose me because I spent 9 years having lunch with her every Wednesday, learning about her properties, caring about her tenants, understanding that real estate is about providing homes, not just collecting profits. You could have told us, Mom said weakly. And you would have done what? I asked. Pressured Grandma to change her mind? Convinced her that Derek deserved everything because he had credentials? That's exactly why she asked me to keep it secret. Dad spoke for the first time since the revelation. The embezzlement. That's real. The $480,000. Every dollar documented, Diane confirmed. Bank records. Wire transfers. Forensic analysis. I raised a thief, Dad said hollowly. You raised a son who believed being responsible meant looking responsible, I corrected. Derek spent 4 years performing competence while committing fraud. Margaret cleared her throat. Derek, you need to make a decision. Sign the confession and begin restitution payments, or Riley presses criminal charges today. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult is a felony in Arizona. Vulnerable adult? Derek latched onto that. Grandma wasn't vulnerable. She was completely competent. Which makes your theft even worse, Margaret said. She trusted you explicitly and you exploited that trust systematically. Derek looked at Amanda's empty chair, then at our parents' disappointed faces, then at the forensic report proving his guilt. I'll sign, he whispered. Derek signed the confession on May 5, 2023. The first restitution payment of $4,000 hit the Elizabeth Walker Housing Fund account 30 days later. But the consequences were immediate and brutal. Amanda filed for divorce 6 weeks after the inheritance meeting. I can't be married to someone who stole from his dying grandmother, she told mutual friends. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. Derek's employer, having learned about the embezzlement through the legal proceedings, asked for his resignation. Ethics concerns, they called it officially. He went from director of finance making $180,000 annually to unemployed. He eventually found a new job in finance, but at a much smaller company making $95,000. Combined with the $4,000 monthly restitution payments, his lifestyle collapsed. The 5-bedroom house in Scottsdale went on the market. Derek moved into a 3-bedroom rental in a much less prestigious neighborhood. The Audi he'd bought with stolen money was repossessed when he couldn't make payments. Mom and Dad tried calling me weekly. I answered occasionally but kept the conversations brief. You destroyed your brother, Mom said once. No, I corrected. Derek destroyed himself. I just revealed it. With the inheritance secured and the fraud exposed, I focused on what Grandma Elizabeth had built. The 10 properties appreciated from $4.2 million in 2018 to $6.2 million by 2024. I replaced premium Arizona properties with a property management company I researched thoroughly and vetted personally. Annual rental income increased from $324,000 to $428,000 through market rate adjustments and improved management. I renovated property number 4 in Mesa. $42,000 investment, doubled the monthly rent. I expanded property number 3 in Scottsdale. Added a 9th storefront, increased annual income by $50,000. My photography business continued thriving. $280,000 annually by 2024. My personal net worth crossed $7 million. I was 34 years old. And I'd built it all while being called irresponsible by people who couldn't see past their own definitions of success. The foundation I'd established with Derek's restitution payments became something bigger than punishment. The Elizabeth Walker Housing Fund started with the $4,000 monthly payments Derek was required to make. But I added $3,000 monthly from my own rental income. By 2024, the fund had grown to $242,000. We used it to help families with security deposits and first month's rent. Provide emergency rental assistance to prevent evictions. Offer financial literacy workshops about housing and budgeting. Support senior housing initiatives. 63 families received assistance in the first year. Every recipient received a letter explaining that the fund existed because Elizabeth Walker believed housing security was the foundation of independence and dignity. She built her wealth one property at a time over 50 years, the letter read. She wanted others to have the same stability and security she worked so hard to create. I visited the fund's office quarterly to review applications. A veteran who avoided homelessness because the fund covered 2 months' rent during a medical crisis. A single mother who got help with a security deposit and now has stable housing for her 3 kids. An elderly couple who received assistance after unexpected medical bills threatened their rent payments. This was Grandma Elizabeth's real legacy. Not the properties themselves, but the security they could provide to others. In November 2024, 18 months after the inheritance meeting, I received a letter. Derek's handwriting. Phoenix postmark. I almost threw it away unopened. But I read it. Riley, it began. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to reduce the restitution. I'm writing because my therapist said I needed to acknowledge what I did without making excuses. I stole $480,000 from Grandma. I spent 4 years convincing myself it was management fees or operational overhead, when I knew exactly what I was doing. Embezzling from a woman who trusted me. I told myself I deserved those properties because I was responsible. Because I had an MBA. Because I looked the part. But I never actually earned anything. Not the properties. Not Grandma's trust. Not the respect I demanded. You earned it. Every Wednesday for 9 years you showed up. You learned. You listened. You cared about Grandma's properties as homes, not investments. The restitution payments are destroying me financially. Amanda left. I lost my job. My kids barely speak to me. I'm living in a rental making half what I used to make. But it's the right consequence. The Elizabeth Walker Housing Fund is a better use of that money than anything I spent it on. I'm 18 months into my 10-year payment plan. That means 102 months to go. 8.5 more years of paying for what I did. I deserve every month of it. I don't expect us to reconcile. I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what Grandma saw in you. You weren't responsible by our family's standards. But you were worthy by hers. Derek. I read the letter 3 times. Then I did something Grandma Elizabeth would have approved of. I wrote back. Derek, I wrote. You're right. You don't deserve forgiveness and I'm not offering it. What you did was unforgivable. Stealing from a dying woman while lecturing others about responsibility. But I believe you're finally understanding what Grandma tried to teach both of us. Credentials aren't character. Looking responsible and being trustworthy are completely different things. You had every advantage. Harvard MBA. High-paying career. Family support and admiration. But you used those advantages to commit fraud while calling me irresponsible. I had different advantages. 9 years of Wednesday lunches with Grandma. Real education about property management, tenant relations, and what stewardship actually means. Grandma didn't choose me because I was better than you. She chose me because I was present. Present every Wednesday. Present when she wanted to talk about tenant issues. Present when she needed someone who cared about the properties as homes, not assets. The 10 properties weren't a reward. They were a responsibility. Grandma trusted me to maintain what she'd built, to honor the tenants who depended on stable housing, to understand that real estate is about providing security, not maximizing profits. You're 18 months into your payment plan. 102 months to go. That seems impossibly long. But here's what I've learned. The time passes whether you grow or not. You can spend those 102 months resenting the consequences, or you can spend them becoming the person Grandma hoped you'd be. The Elizabeth Walker Housing Fund has helped 63 families so far. Your restitution, combined with my contributions, is creating exactly the legacy Grandma would have wanted. Keep making the payments. Keep learning what responsibility actually means. And maybe, when the restitution is paid 10 years from now, we can have coffee and talk about what we've built instead of what we thought we deserved. Riley. I mailed the letter. I don't know if Derek and I will ever rebuild our relationship. Probably not. Some betrayals are permanent. But I'd learned the most important lesson from Grandma Elizabeth's $5.8 million trust. The best inheritance isn't assets. It's the character to deserve them before you receive them. It's been 2 years since that inheritance meeting where Derek called me irresponsible. The 10 properties are now worth $6.8 million. Annual income, $484,000. My photography business generates $340,000 annually with 2 associate photographers. The Elizabeth Walker Housing Fund has grown to $410,000 and has helped 127 families. My personal net worth is $8.2 million. I'm 35 years old. Every Wednesday I visit Grandma Elizabeth's grave. I bring iced tea in a thermos. The same kind we used to drink during our Wednesday lunches. Property number 8 in Flagstaff just appreciated past $700,000. I told her headstone last Wednesday. You were right about buying near universities. Steady demand, responsible tenants. The wind rustled through the desert plants around her grave. Derek made his 24th payment last week, I continued. Never missed one. The fund helped a family of 6 avoid eviction last month. They sent a thank you card with drawings from all the kids. I poured tea into the small cup I kept at the grave. You were right about everything, I said. About building in silence. About earning trust before claiming inheritance. About understanding that real estate is about people's security, not just investment returns. A family was visiting a grave 2 rows over. 2 adult children arguing about their father's will. He promised me the business, one said. He promised me equal shares, the other replied. Neither considering that maybe their father had made different plans based on who actually deserved what. I smiled sadly. Some people never learn until it's too late. I finished my tea and stood up. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered. For seeing me when everyone else was seeing their own definitions of success. For teaching me that being underestimated is a gift. For trusting me with your legacy. I walked back to my Jeep. The same beat-up Wrangler everyone thought proved I was irresponsible. My phone buzzed. A text from my property manager. Tenant for property number 1 renewed lease. 5-year term. They said it's the best place they've ever rented. I smiled. Property number 1. Grandma's first purchase back in 1974. 50 years later, still providing someone with a home. That's what real estate should be. Not a resume item to prove responsibility. Not assets to leverage for personal gain. Not investments to embezzle from. Homes. Security. The foundation of people's lives. The things Grandma Elizabeth built her empire to provide. And the legacy I'd spend the rest of my life protecting. Exactly as she'd planned. While my responsible brother spent the next 8 years paying for the difference between looking trustworthy and actually being worthy.